Hello, everyone, and welcome to Strange Coordinates, a show where we use brands as compass points to lead us to fascinating stories. I'm Robert Baylog.
And I'm Topher Burns. Robert and I founded an advertising agency called Territorial to help brands find their place in the world. But we're not the only people who love brands. Today, we're introducing a new format of our show where we focus on a specific theme and bring a traveling companion along with us on the journey. It's called, wait for it, Stranger Coordinates.
And if you don't appreciate that wordplay, you're listening to the wrong podcast. So, in our Carnival Cruise Lines episode, Shiploads of Fun, we covered the strange phenomenon of ship godmothers. And that got us thinking about the idea of brand spokespeople in general. Real or fictional, human or animal, they lend their personality, their credibility, and their voice to brands.
Joining our expedition today is somebody who is rooted in advertising strategy and has focused a lot recently on inclusion in her work. She leads inclusion at Code and Theory, and she is the founder and lead strategist at GoodWorks. With 15 years in the game, please welcome Kirstyn Nimmo.
Hello. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. You know, Kirstyn, you and I go way back. So it's been a delight to hear that you're willing to join us on this journey, to have a friendly face along with us for this first time.
Yes, I'm so excited to have this conversation.
So, Kirstyn, I know that you actually grew up in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So you have some familiarity with the cruise industry that we were talking about in a previous episode.
Yes.
I'm curious, were you aware before we shared this that cruise ships have godmothers?
No, and I'm actually very curious about what that even means. I have lots of things that go off in my mind when you say cruise ships, but godmothers was not one of them.
No, you wouldn't think that you needed somebody to tend to the spiritual life of a ship, but apparently that is necessary. We got to sort of ship godmothers, and we're thinking a lot about the idea of brand spokespeople, and it's a feature of a lot of brands, right? There's some brands that we grew up with who have notable spokespeople like Tony the Tiger, or there's like Chrysler LeBaron, Ricardo Montalban, who was the spokesperson for the brand. So sticking with today's theme, we want to know if you can think of a brand spokesperson or a mascot that kind of sticks with you, like even for the silliest reasons.
Honestly, the first one that came to mind for me was Flo from Progressive.
I mean,
Whoa.
legit. Totally
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, lead us on that journey. How do you feel about Flo?
I think that I got lots of visual cues as you were talking about the different characters, and the fact that Flo, so it was interesting when you started mentioning the more animated characters. I was like, yeah, what is the deal with that? Because we create those, right? And then they become credible in this way that we give them credibility. They never have to actually defend that or create that in a human way. And so I was thinking about the more animated side of that, but feeling like I really prefer a human when it comes to that because of that credibility that
Right.
should be real, in my opinion, that I'm discovering right now. And then I thought of Flo, I think, because I feel animation, but also the human credibility in that one figure.
So we got a little bit warmed up now, Kirstyn, and we are going to do a segment that we call Off-Brand. And it's where I'm going to ask you 3 brand-related questions that are connected to our theme. And don't worry, there is no scoring here. Nothing is contingent upon the outcome of this quiz. This is not wait until tell me. Although if you want to leave your voice on my outgoing message, that'd be great too.
I was going to be like, wait, what happens at wait, don't tell me? Do the losers get flogged or something?
They don't get flogged, but you can win the presenter of your choice leaving your outgoing message.
Oh.
Which I'm sure everybody just chooses Bill Curtis.
But also message? I don't, who?
Yeah, okay, millennial. Yeah, some people still actually listen or leave voicemail.
I definitely do not.
All right. So, off-brand. We're going to start with an easy one. Well, maybe an easy one. There's a hint in it, and then we'll get progressively harder. Okay, so first question. What celebrity lent their star power to Honey Nut Cheerios in 2013 with the slogan, "Must be the honey"?
Oh my goodness. That is
What-
great. Okay. So one fun fact about me, I don't remember celebrity names, like barely ever. So
Perfect.
that. And then I also don't even remember that phrase. So I'm at a loss here.
What if I sang it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll always invite a song.
Yeah. Must be the honey.
Oh, Nelly?
Bing! You got it. It was absolutely Nelly. It was totally
That
Nelly.
was really, really good. That like Robert sang it and you got it, boom, right there.
Yeah, of course.
Branding.
Yeah.
But wait, when did that happen? This was in like Cheerios
2013,
commercial?
like right when he was, in Honey Nut Cheerios. Like, it's amazing. So the whole premise of this commercial is Nelly's hanging out with the Honey Nut Cheerios bee, and he says,
As you would.
obviously, and he's like, "Hey, you don't have enough swag," and he like swagifies the Honey Nut Cheerios bee to the point where the Honey Nut Cheerios bee gets like a auto-tune voice, and then the ending is "Must be the honey," which is the second best 2000s hip hop star brand endorsement after the recent Ludacris in State Farm, which is just my absolute favorite thing ever because we all love Luda. He's just the best.
Of course. Wow. Thank you for bringing that back. I do not remember that, but I might have to look it up after this.
I had no memory either. Topher, did you have any memory of that? I had no
None.
memory of
None
because that is
whatsoever.
at the height of Nelly's power, I think, too. Like he was really swinging for the fences then.
He was
2013.
spawning the Saint Lunatics.
Yeah, it was amazing. Okay, well, you did great. You got it right. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
this
Only
one is-
because of the singing. Thank you for the hint.
You're welcome. I'm never shy about singing on the podcast, as our listener knows. All right, second question. Maybe a little bit harder.
Okay.
What brand did the Flintstones enthusiastically endorse throughout the 1961 TV season? And I will take the category. We don't even if you even can think of what type of product it was. We'll take that as a correct answer.
Okay. The Flintstones.
Maybe a bit incongruous that they would be advertising or endorsing this product.
Okay.
Fred's a hardworking man. Sometimes at his lunch breaks, he might want to
Cigarettes?
ding, ding, ding. Correct. Winston cigarettes. Winston
my
cigarettes.
Wow.
And like not just sort of one-offs. Every single episode had a little intro of like Fred saying, "Winston tastes good like a cigarette should."
No.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Robert has shown me some of these spots since he wrote these questions, and not only are they selling cigarettes, but they are deeply misogynist cigarette ads.
Oh man.
Like,
Yes.
it's like him and Barney being like, the women work hard, don't they? Let's go hang out and relax.
Yeah. Well, she's beating the rug with like a flattened pterodactyl or something. It's like they didn't have sticks then. They're like, well, everything can be made with animals. We don't need to use.
Well, it's funny because like in my childhood, like the Flintstones were already not relevant. Like they were old timey.
Right.
And I kind of like I remember watching some Flintstones content when hanging out with my grandparents, like that sort of thing. It was like what 2 generations prior considered like funny cartoons, but they were very relevant for me in terms of vitamins.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that like my vitamin brand 30 years earlier was selling Winston cigarettes.
Yeah. And
That's actually what I thought of when you said Flintstones first was the vitamins.
Yeah.
I wonder
were,
when
were
that-
you a Flintstones kid?
Yes, absolutely. I still remember that chalky taste, and I liked it, I think.
Yeah.
I don't recall there being another option for children's vitamins. To be honest with you, I don't think there was. It was just sort of that is what a vitamin looked like. It looked like
Yeah.
Barney Rubble.
Yep, exactly. And those like pastel colors.
With pastel colors, they like crunch through it, like oh yeah. All right, so the last question. This is a multiple choice question.
Okay.
Okay.
I like these.
So the question is, why did Domino's retire the Noid in 1989?
What is a
Was-
Noid?
Oh, that was their mascot, the
Remember the
Noid.
little rabbity looking thing.
He was wearing like a red jumpsuit with like little kind of looked like rabbit ears, but it didn't have rabbit
No.
ears.
Can I look it
He
up really
was
quickly?
kinda-
Just so I
Yeah,
can
look it up
remember
really
it?
quickly, then I'll read and
Yeah.
I'll read. Yeah,
Yeah, just image search like Domino's the Noid and tell us.
but don't
Once
look up
you-
any stories.
Once you find, just image search it. Image search it is
Yeah.
fine.
This is a
Tell us what you
terrifying
see.
character.
Terrifying.
Terrifying.
Also inexplicable.
It's like A, a white man in rabbit face.
Basically. Basically.
Wow. What is happening? Okay.
No one knew at the time either. It's not like we knew and we lost that knowledge. Nobody knew what the hell was going on.
Wow. Okay. So why was he retired? I could probably give you like 20 fake reasons right now. What are your multiple choice besides
Wait,
it being nightmare fuel?
I want Kirsten to just answer like
Okay, yeah.
if
What
you
are
had to
you
guess.
start with your the fake options. What are the fake options?
I mean, he looks like a robber, kind of,
Okay.
which is scary. Not what I want for someone delivering to my house an association of abandoned.
You don't want to give him your address, is what you're saying.
No. Yeah, it's like a mask situation. The animal, it's like, is he wearing an animal skin? Does he just, like skinning
Right.
things? Looks a little scary. It's just, yeah, there's a lot of nightmare fuel happening over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So those are really good answers, really good options, and one of them could be true.
Okay.
The ones that we would love you to choose from is A, research revealed that the repeated exposure to the words the Noid was causing consumers to subconsciously and consciously link Domino's with a feeling of being annoyed, and that caused brand sentiment to plummet. That's A. B, they had a campaign that was called Avoid the Noid. That was the name of the campaign. The Noid was essentially the thing that stopped your pizza from getting there. So B, the Avoid the Noid campaign tragically inspired a real-life episode of mayhem when a man with the last name Noid took Domino's employees hostage because he thought the campaign was directed at him. Or C, in a lawsuit by the seminal American punk band Richard Hell and the Voidoids, the plaintiffs were able to establish that Domino's use of the Noid violated the copyrights of their song Avoided and Annoyed, We're the Voidoids.
Wait, so are C and B connected because of Avoid the Noid campaign in that as well?
They're two different answers, but
Okay.
they are pivoting on the Avoid the Noid campaign, yes.
Wow. Okay. First of all, how interesting to live in a world where all of these could have been the answer.
True.
I'm
It's
not
actually really
pulled in
true.
one
You're right.
direction, right?
You're right. They are pretty, that grouping on the dartboard is pretty close for these.
Okay. Let's see.
So it's A, people were subconsciously getting the notion of being annoyed. B,
Yep.
somebody whose last name Noid thought the campaign was directed at him and took drastic measures. Or C, Domino's was sued by a band called the Richard Hell and the Voidoids.
I like A as an answer because I love consumer studies and analysis of how people think about things. But I think I'm going to go with C because I feel like lawsuits are just so common behind a lot of these changes.
I mean, that is a really good guess. We are a litigious society. However, it is actually B is the actual answer. B is the answer.
Whoa. I was
Yeah,
hoping
so-
it wasn't that.
I know. It's
Wow.
pretty tragic. So, like on January 30th in 1989, there was a guy named Kenneth Lamar Noid. He was in Atlanta, Georgia. He's 22 years old, and he stormed into a Domino's wielding a 3057 Magnum, and he took two employees hostage. And he kind of, for 5 hours, he was in the standoff with the police, and he requested all this crazy stuff, like he wanted a getaway car, he wanted $100,000, and he weirdly wanted a copy of the novel The Widow's Son, which is a novel about Freemasons. Apparently, that was going to be really crucial to his plans. All good. The employees were freed in the sort of chaos of them escaping. He fired a gun and was taken. Nobody was hurt. He was taken by force, apprehended, and was charged with kidnapping and all this stuff. Turns out he was having a psychotic episode. But what he thought was that the owner of Domino's, like the CEO of Domino's, had a personal vendetta against him and was forming this campaign to antagonize him, and he just couldn't stand it anymore,
Wow.
which is crazy. So the ensuing press from that Domino's is like, I think we may want to just sort of tuck this weird little character away for a while, and he has not been seen since.
Given that this was in 1989, it immediately made me think like, and when did Reagan start shutting down mental health in this country and
Right.
putting people out on the street? Like the Noid stuff is funny, but then when you get into this story, it's a little like, I mean, come on, like this country really
Yeah.
needs to start thinking differently about mental health.
Absolutely.
You can't, how can you first off, as a human being, this situation's bad. But then like, it would be impossible as a brand manager to think of like all the different ways that like, how are you supposed to avoid something like that? How
Right.
can you actually avoid the Noid, you know, the person who's going to get triggered on stuff like that. Yeah, come on, America, let's do better by our people and make sure that they don't feel like they're being persecuted by pizza demons.
I mean, he was definitely a pizza demon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That went to a dark place.
Okay, so far we have been kind of taking the lead and running some questions by you, but it is your turn. We're going into our segment called Omnipotent Brand Manager. You've been promoted to the most powerful brand manager in the history of creation for the span of a single project. You can do anything. What brand would you work with, and what would you do?
I love this question. It's a huge question and is positioned in exactly the opposite of the way that my brain works. So a lot to think through. But thinking through that question was really interesting, especially with the work I do being at the intersection of strategy and inclusion and culture, really understanding, you know, where we are today and what impacts us. And one of the things that came to mind was media, given that there's so much of a dystopian shadow around, you know, the news that we get and how it gets to us and how it's positioned, how it's biased or not. And that feels like a really important place to make some transformation happen. And so that's a place where I'd want to focus. And I think that media is also something that sits right at that intersection, you know, where culture and inclusion come into play. I know that you talked about the span of a project, so I'm not sure how small or wide of a space that would give me. But I think being able to redefine how people even take in the word news and what that means to them would be a dream project, and I think could really impact the way that we live and, you know, the way that we interact with information that's around us every day.
What does it mean when you think about inclusion? How do you think about how inclusive brands behave or messages that they share when you're in your sort of inclusion space? What are some of the lessons that you think brands should be paying attention to? And, you know, how might those potentially connect to something in the media space?
That's a great question. So when I'm thinking about inclusion, a really big part of that is who has not been included in the past and why. I think that generally when supporting clients, that's one of the first questions that I ask. Who are you serving? And then more importantly, who are you not serving? Why have you not been serving them? Are you not serving them because your product or service wasn't curated to include them? Or is there like a very intentional exclusion that's happening? And what is the why behind that? And I think that so much of how problems are solved is in the why. Why did that even start? Why has it not been addressed? A thing that I love about the inclusion space, though, is that it is completely linked to opportunity, right? Because when you answer that question, now there's an opportunity to serve those who have not been served and to do it better than they have, to do it in general in some cases, and then to do it better than it has been done in the past. I know that we've seen, you know, when brands are competing, they make better and better products and services. And so the more that are serving more people, the better that those offerings will be. So I think that the inclusion space to me is all about, you know, the history of a space, who was included and why not, and then what can we do for them now. And when we think about that in comparison to this question around media, I think that's really interesting. I think that it's such a different beast, right? Because when we talk about competition, what does that mean in the media space? I think it's a lot of what we've seen so far. How do you compete for attention? And I think maybe changing that on its head from an inclusive perspective about serving people. How are we actually serving viewers? How are we serving them with information in a context that they can use it in a way that's meaningful? And again, like, what's the output that we want? We know that in our really consumerist culture, that there's a lot driving what people see, what grabs their eyeballs, how it's paid for through advertising, et cetera. But I think that really understanding what is the service of media and news might be a way to get closer and more inclusive on that question.
Thank you so much, Kirstyn, for being with us today. Really appreciate it. An incredible conversation, fun, informative, especially love the contribution that you made of how brands and media outlets can embrace a inclusive mindset to shift from competition to service, which I think as professionals we should all be advocates for. and should be tracking the progress of as things move forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for introducing me to the Noid, who I will not be able to forget at this point. But love this conversation. It was really cool to explore what inclusion in media could look like. There's a lot there, and happy to continue that conversation. And for anyone who's interested, you can reach out to me, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, I guess. My handle, Kirstyn Nimmo, with one N at the end of my name, starting with the beginning of my name. Not too hard to find me, but really love exploring these topics. So if anyone wants to share more what they think about this episode, I'd love to keep chatting about it.
Amazing. So yes, thank you so much, Kirstyn. We'll make sure that information is in the show notes so people can reach out to you as well. And to everybody listening, thank you so much for joining us. To learn more about Territorial and how we help brands find their place in the world, go to our website. It is weareterritorial.com, and follow us on LinkedIn. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing.